Hey there, everybody. It's Mike Yao with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. Haven't done a video in, I don't know, a week and a half or so, 2 weeks, and thought I would do another one based on the Callings system of the Savage Kingdoms 3rd edition role-playing game. So those of you, and I've mentioned this in other videos, but those of you who don't know and didn't watch those, the term calling in Savage Kingdoms is, well, first of all, it's pretty much what it actually means, to be called to do something. People are called to be a priest. Sometimes people are called to be a soldier. Sometimes people are called to be a graphic designer or something like that. So the term we use in Savage Kingdoms to kind of, I hate to say class because it's definitely not a class-based system, but it is kind of a life path. In fact, in the previous 2 editions of Savage Kingdoms, it was called Life Path instead of Callings. I changed it because I noticed a couple of games came out suddenly using the term Life Path. I hadn't seen it before. Very tiny game here, so I doubt they copied. But anyway, it's a word. We can all share it. It's fine. So we changed it to Callings. Life paths used to be not as mechanical as Callings are. So Callings now, Savage Kingdoms third edition, the new book, right here, by the way. I know I've showed it off before. The graphic designer was Michael Scott Phillips, because I think I forgot to mention him in the last video, and I know he was kind of ragging me. He was kind of kidding, but still I should have mentioned it. I did in a previous take of the video, and I ended up using another take. So yeah, Michael Scott Phillips, who helped me do the Reforged core rulebook, which is the 2nd edition. The reason I use quotes because it's really a 1.5 edition, but it gets confusing. So Savage Kingdoms 3 is what we're calling this one. So Callings is a chance to get some mechanical benefits for choosing a life path. So there's 20 of them. It goes from Alchemist to Witch, I believe, in alphabetical order. This video will be covering the first 10, so we're just going to go through half of them. There are 20. We're just going to go through 10, which I think is through Merchant. Alphabetical order. So a calling is the first paragraph. This is on page 55, by the way, of the book. For those of you who want to follow along, seems like a lesson or something. Right there, page 55 of the SK3 core rule book. First paragraph of Callings, it says, in Savage Kingdoms, a calling is a sort of life path, something almost resembling classes in many other tabletop RPGs. When creating your character, you may either choose one of the callings below, or you can simply choose not to have a calling and build your character in a more free-form fashion, apart from your racial or cultural benefits. So as you can see, classes are very more restrictive. Callings, as you'll see, are looser. But they do give you some mechanical benefit, whereas in the past, Life Path really didn't. It just suggested, like, I want to play an assassin. Here's some suggested talents that you should perhaps have or look into, or maybe even weaknesses that you should have. Here's the skills that you probably want to focus on, etc. So, yeah, so we're going to start with, and it says, it did mention that. You don't, the cool thing is, in previous editions, you didn't have to have a life path. That was just kind of a suggestion of your character concept. So owing to that, you don't have to have a calling now in 3rd edition. So I'm pretty happy with the fact that you can choose a calling, which I actually like overall. But you can be sans calling. You don't have to have a calling and build the character you want to. You will lose out on some benefits of like discounted talents and stuff from being a calling, from choosing a calling. But you can, the benefits being, I guess, more loosey-goosey. So, yeah, let's get right into it. I'll describe some stuff as we go, some little more detail. All right, so the first calling, and again, we're just going through, this is part 1, we're just going through Merchant. First calling, as you can probably see, is an Alchemist. Alchemist right there, the character creation section, section 7 of that chapter. Alchemist starts. So, and I'll read the first paragraph of of all 10 callings in this video, starting with Alchemist. Alchemia, or alchemy, is a science-like mystical art largely developed first in the East beyond the Dragon Sea. Sometimes referred to as the 8th magic in reference to the 7 magical disciplines, alchemists became first known in the West among the Pridonian Isles and eventually in the Laurentian Empire. It then crept northward into Mlovia and to some minor extent in Brythia, and further westward into Ismandos, though the remainder of Astegonia is generally ignorant or mistrusting of the ways of Alchemia. Astegonia is the western continent. And then each calling lists, suggested, or no, not suggested, race/culture requirements, talent requirements. Uh, yeah. Then after talent requirement, favored talents, favored weaknesses, skills that you automatically start with, and then additional skill points that you can spend freely, and then starting gear. So those of you who don't know what favored talents or favored weaknesses mean, is it comes from, you can see them in your race and culture. Each race and culture has them too. So any talent is favored, whether it's through your race, culture, or calling, it reduces in cost by 1 point, the base cost. So say if the base cost of a talent is 3, which a lot of them are, and it's listing, and you choose the alchemist calling, and let's say, for example, mystic craft potion is in there, and you want craft potion and can qualify for it, so you would pay 2 points instead of 3. If it also appears in your race section, something that's favored for your culture or race, it reduces by another point. So no talent can reduce more than 2 points. It says it in the book. It's fairly clear, but I just wanted to put that out there while we're on the subject. So yeah, so that's a good way to save points. So you can see you can build a character more thematically with stuff you wouldn't want and save points that way to get more stuff. Or you can completely ignore favorite talents and get a talent that's not favored. It's totally fine, as long as you qualify for it. Favored weaknesses work the same. So you get bonus points for weaknesses, obviously for character creation to put towards talents or skills. So a favored weakness means, and I know the description's almost kind of silly. It's like, why would I favor a weakness? But it's a game term. For example, an alchemist disfigured, because alchemists run a risk of explosion and burns and stuff like that. Disfigured is a favorite weaknesses. So you would get 3 points if you chose the disfigured weaknesses instead of the base 2. So that's how that works. And then each calling starts with a number of skill points, for example, alchemist starts with 18 plus intellect and skill points, plus gains the following skills for free: alchemy level 2, crafting level 1, endurance level 1, herbalism level 1, lore level 1, perception level 1. And then starting gear. You begin with the following items, plus 10 times your renown in silver coins, a minimum of 10 silver pieces. So alchemists, for example, could start with soft boots or sandals, robe or tunic, cloak or a leather apron, a belt or sash, belt pouch or leather sack, alchemist kit, dagger or staff. As you can see, you make choices in a lot of these. Crossbow or sling, quiver, or quiver of 20 bolts or sling stones, 1 flask of healing salve, or a moderate acid or Pridonian fire, which those are all alchemical concoctions, as you might imagine. So each calling is kind of laid out like that. It's fairly simple and straightforward, and still allows you. So in other words, going back to skills, where I listed the skills that it gives you automatically, you still have 18 other skill points plus your intellect. So if your intellect was, say, plus 2, that would be 20 more skill points to spend freely to increase the levels that you start with of the skills up to the maximum starting level, which is level 2 in a skill, or level 3 in a skill. Or you can put points and therefore levels and other skills that aren't listed if you choose. So yeah. All right, moving on to the next calling. Assassin. In addition to professional killers, this life path might also represent spies or particularly shrewd and deadly emissaries. Assassins, after all, are skilled slayers, poisoners, and silent and covert perceivers of their targets and other things around them. Some assassins kill at great distances, utilizing bows or crossbows as their preferred weapons of choice, while others destroy their targets up close, either by thrusting blade, a poisoned drink. And there's another paragraph or 2 of description. I'm not going to read all of them. Race culture requirement. There's several. Don't really have time to go over that, but that's just one to let you know that's what's listed in there. A little point on race culture requirement. It does say requirement, meaning that from my point of view as the world builder and the game designer, so for example, this one says, this is again assassin. Brithian, Ismondian, Laurenthian, Malovian, Pridonian, Central Islander. Optional non-human races: Mezcan, Chernari, Dark She, Wild She, and Green Sleer. So though you have to be one of those to be an assassin by strict order of the rules, but you don't have to. You buy the book, it's your game, it's now your setting if you're the game master, your interpretation of the setting, and at any rate. So you can allow other cultures or races to be an assassin if you want. That's just kind of there to let you know, because if you're a world builder yourself, so once you kind of let everything kind of completely open, you lose a little bit of theming in your world. So just keep that in mind. But otherwise, yeah, go for it if you want to make that more of a suggestion than a requirement. Talent requirement. Now, this is more strict. So they need a assassin or secret strike as a talent. Since these are considered favored talents, assassin or secret strike, you pay 1 point less for them, as I just had mentioned. Then it goes into favorite talents of the assassin, favorite weaknesses, tainted being one of them. The only way you can really be truly evil in the setting, because it's kind of gray tribal morality setting. Assassins start with 18 plus intellect and skill points, plus gain the following skills for free. Acrobatics level 1. Some of these are obvious. Disguise level 1, stealth level 1, weaponry, melee, and range both level 1. Perception, yeah. So you begin with the following items, plus, so they could start with anywhere from soft leather or a soft leather mask or cloth mask to kind of interesting in this day and age. Cloak, leather belt, soft leather jerkin, padded gambeson, dagger or short sword, dart, dagger or dart, crossbow or short bow. They can even start with a vial of moderate blade poison or strong ingested poison, which is kind of cool. Okay, all right. Number 3, calling number 3, Bard. Bard. All right, so Bard, more commonly known as Skalds in the North, Bards are typically musicians, lore masters, and often wandering heralds and news bringers. Often associated with the shamanic druids of the Northwest realms. I lifted that from actual history and mythology. Bards are, in these days, more independent, and those who are not attached to a particular tribe, clan, or court wander the semi-civilized lands in search of additional tales and lore, or for a want to express or earn a living through song, saga, and the performing arts. So very cool. Then it lists race culture requirement, like all the other callings. Talent requirement, they have to have Bard, because there actually is a talent called Bard, a social talent. And then there's the list of their favorite talents. They have a fair amount of access to social, as you might imagine, social talents. Also subterfuge and a lot of other talents that are open to them, that are favored, not open. You can, again, take any talent if you can qualify for it, but favored just means you pay 1 point less for that particular talent. Favorite weaknesses, obsession of history, knowledge, or music is suggested. They start with 17 plus intellect and skill points, plus the following skills for free. Animal handling, level 1. Performance, level 2. That's their big one, as you might imagine. Performance, level 2. Persuasion, level 1. Language, lore, as you might imagine. Resolve, and even disguise. They can start with anywhere from like a tunic and soft boots to a kilt to a, excuse me, a buckler, soft leather armor, dagger or short sword, crossbow or long sword. A bowrun, which a bowrun is a Celtic drum, hand drum, or flute, or a harp or lute. So very cool musical instruments. All right, on to the next. Berserker. Berserker. So, didn't want to call this barbarian because barbarian, in general, and particularly the setting, really refers to like a culture, like to peoples. Often it's not even correct. So, for example, a lot of the Laurentian Empire in this setting, which is kind of Romanesque, they refer to almost anyone outside the empire as a barbarian, as a savage, possibly even like the outer province people that are a little more rural. So it's all a matter of perspective. Most barbarian peoples don't really consider themselves barbarians, but some of them, like the Thraki, completely embrace it. They're like, yeah, what barbarians, savages, whatever. What are you going to do about it? Excuse me, doing that voice. Okay, as I drink some melted mellow yellow, which is mostly water now. So instead of calling it barbarian, like I just said, it is called berserker. Is this calling? So because berserker is specifically a sort of a type of warrior. So the first paragraph of berserker says, in the more barbarous reaches of the world, particularly in the far north, there exists a wild and wanton type of warrior known as the berserker. Some whisper that this term comes from the tendency of these savage fighters to wear little more than a bear skin or bear shirt, or perhaps shirtless entirely, which in this case means bare skin. For the far-flung corners of the scarcely known world can be full of frights and terrible dangers. Not all barbarian warriors are berserkers, however, although almost all berserkers are barbarians. So yeah, so I even put in the little historical Old Norse thing about what does berserker actually mean. It could either mean a shirt of bear skin, or it literally means bare skin, like bare, like nothing. So I let the option of either be open. That's up to your interpretation, your character's interpretation. Then there's the usual list of race culture requirement. It's mostly what you consider kind of the barbarian cultures. Talent requirement, they have to have berserker rage, and that's it. Of course, you have to qualify for that talent. Favorite talents, there's a lot of battle talents that are, as you might imagine, that are like favored. And other to some degree, and they even have excess favored with some blood talents that are pretty rare, like demon blood, giant blood, lycanthrope, werebear, werewolf, trollborn, etc. Favorite weaknesses: obsession, blood, or plunder, disfigured. Because they go through hard battles sometimes, often wearing little armor, if any. They start with 17 plus their intellect and skill points, plus gain the following for free. Weaponry melee level 2, as you might imagine. Athletics, brawling, endurance. And they get a choice between sailing or survival level 1. Yeah. Starting gear can be anywhere from leather breeks to a kilt to a fur cape or cloak, belt or girdle, soft leather jerkin, armor or small shield, horned warhelm, even a skull headpiece is an option, battle axe or great axe, hand axe, warhammer, javelin or sling. The sling comes with 20 sling stones. So very cool. All right, on to the next calling. Again, in alphabetical order. So now we're at craftsman. I'm just showing this little piece of art here in the book. Page, whatever that says in reverse, 57. Craftsman, all right. Though adventuring smiths and other craftsmen tend to be a rarity, it is certainly not unheard of, as master crafters can be in high demand among the various realms of the known world. Some craftspeople are blacksmiths or woodworkers or stone cutters, while others could be leatherworkers, weavers, tailors, and jewelers, among many other types. The very term journeyman, an ancient piece of craftsman's jargon, represents a smith or other crafter making a journey, furthering knowledge of his trade in remote or faraway places, sometimes serving under a master craftsman. As such, the adventuring craftsperson is born. So, yeah, a little historical note there about journeyman. And there's another paragraph of description. Then it lists the usual stuff, race, culture requirement, pretty much any, because any culture has craftsmen and artisans. You have to have apprentice, the non-mystical version, or artisan as a required talent. Favorite talents, it lists not a whole lot, but most of them are the ones are social, in the social category, like apprentice, artisan, henchman, which represent an apprentice or a merchant. Fire in the head, they have option 2 too, inventing things. Favorite weaknesses, obsession, crafting, or inventing. They start with 20 plus their intellect and skill points, plus gain the following skills for free: crafting level 2, as one might imagine, endurance level 1, perception level 1, and resolve level 1. Starting gear, they can start anywhere from sandals or soft boots to a shirt or tunic to a leather apron or cloak, work apron, leather belt, set of crafting tools of the type of their choice, a pouch or leather sack, hand axe or staff, padded gambeson or soft leather armor, a club or dagger. So, cool. All right. Next one is gladiator. Gladiator. Whether a true gladiator in the arenas of the Laurenthian Empire, a warrior athlete of the Pridonian Isles, or a tourney fighter from the north, this calling is for the crowd-pleasing participants of the various blood sports. While most gladiatorial warriors are enslaved, often managed by a stable master or some other form of owner, there are a good many who are free, competing for gold and glory in the arenas, pits, and tournament fields across the known world. So as you can see, they're the kind of your standard gladiator type from the Laurenthian and Pridonian cultures in this setting. But you could be like a northern pit fighter, like Conan was in the original awesome movie from 1981. Or you could be even an Eridornian lancer, jouster. Jousting is just now becoming a thing in, say, Eridorn and even across the sea in Tarnia. But so it's kind of brutal, but there are knights that they're starting to kind of develop sort of a tournament version of. So that could be kind of a gladiator as well. Then there's the usual stuff. They have access to a lot of favored battle talents, as you might imagine. And yeah, favorite talents can be anywhere. Oh yeah, they have quite a number that I've put in there. Apparently, doomed is one of them. obsession, competition, savage, illegitimate, indebted. You might be fighting to pay off a debt, to earn money to pay off a debt. They start with 18 plus their intellect and skill points, plus the following skills for free. Weaponry melee level 2 is the big one. They have performance level 1 because you need to know how to work the crowd, right? And because you're basically performing in sort of a blood sport. Brawling, endurance, athletics, acrobatics. Starting gear, they can start with, in addition to 10 times their renown and silver coins, sandals or soft boots, a leather war skirt, belt or girdle, a cape or cloak, hard leather armor, chainmail shirt, buckler or javelin, short sword or spear or trident, and cestus or dagger. Cestus is a spike punching gauntlet. So most of you probably know that. Healer is the next calling. This life path represents healers of several types, from herbalists to leech crafters to even those who practice healing magic. Some healers are more formally trained, such as in the temples of some civilized realm or at the feet of a master shaman, while others dabble independently in the craft as cunning women or wise men. Regardless, a healer's primary concern is the well-being of his or her tribe or current companions, or perhaps even the sanctity of life itself. And then there's another paragraph. There's the usual race culture requirement, which is pretty much any, because just about any, except for Dark She and All Sleer. Talent requirement, you have to have Healer's Touch or Priest. They're considered favorite talents, of course. Let's see, they have favorite talents. They don't have a huge amount, but most of the ones they do have are mystical or in the other category. Favorite talents, they might have phobia of undead. That's kind of cool, since you're like kind of a champion of life and healing. Oath bound to a long-suffering patient or local lord or temple is another kind of cool thing. Skills, they start with 19 skill points plus intellect, and plus receive the following for free. Healing arts level 2, as you imagine, is their big one. And then there's also perception, resolve, herbalism, and animal handling, because they may be called on to heal animals as well. Starting gear is anywhere from sandals to a mantle or tunic to a cloak or overtunic to a belt pouch or healer's pouch, herbalist pouch or soft leather armor, preserved white lotus blossom or a vial of healing salve you can start with, and a dagger or staff. So, kind of cool. All right, the next calling up is Hunter. All right, so this life path represents those who make their way and living among the wilds of the world, and might in some cultures be known as scouts or rangers. As such, a scout is generally an accomplished archer, since long ranges must sometimes be covered in vast terrains, and more often a stealthy stalker and swift skirmisher. Perception and awareness are also important, as is the ability to survive for long periods in the wilderness. There's another paragraph as well. Race culture requirement, as per usual. Talent requirements, they need to have at least one of the following: hunter, mountaineer, or woodsman. And those are considered favorite talents as well. They can have all of them if they want. They just have to have the one to qualify for the calling. Favorite talents, most of them are battle, but there's a fair amount of subterfuge ones, as you might imagine, and some other talents as well. Favorite talents. Favorite weaknesses: obsession, hunting, outdoors, or travel. Phobia, enclosed spaces, or fire. Because mostly these are outdoors people and typically non-urban. They start with 17 plus their intellect and skill points and gain the following skills for free. They start with weaponry, range, stealth, survival, perception, endurance, acrobat, stuff you might imagine, athletics, herbalism even. They can begin with anywhere from buskins, which are just another kind of a Western form of moccasins, soft leather foot wrappings basically, to soft boots, to shirt or tunic, to a length of rope, to kind of help herbalist kit, brigandine armor or soft leather jerkin, a buckler or spear or staff, a longbow, short bow or sling, the accompanying ammunition, dagger or hand axe. So very cool. All right, the next one is knight. Several cultures support the knightly class, those with a so-called military obligation to a liege lord, such as a baron, count, duke, or king. Since knights typically come from some degree of wealth and privilege, there's someone's coming to my front door. Sometimes called since knights typically come from some degree of wealth and privilege, although there are certainly poorer hedge knights or country knights, they are often horsemen, sometimes called cavaliers or cavalrymen. Most, therefore, can afford some decent degree of war gear, such as mail or better armor or a fine sword or lance or mace, as they are generally supplied by or paid by their lieges. A knight, after all, is typically oath-bound to protect the lands and chattels of his or her lord, and in some cases might have even greater obligations. And there's another little paragraph as well. They have to have the knight talent. There is actually a talent. That's the only one that they have to qualify, but that's kind of a big one. They have access to mostly favored battle talents. As you might imagine, battle social also is. They have a lot of those and other talents, because knights are kind of they're almost like lesser nobles in a way. They're kind of like warrior statesmen. So skills, they can start with 13 plus their intellect and skill points. So animal handling level 2, weaponry melee level 2, and persuasion, resolve, endurance, brawling, athletics, range weaponry even level 1. So persuasion. So yeah, as you might imagine. Now they can start with a light warhorse with a saddlebags, and tack and harness. So you can even start with a light warhorse with this one, which is pretty expensive. Padded gambeson, which is has padded armor, or chainmail shirt, medium shield or greatsword, longsword or saber, a warhelm or mailed coif or war cap, lance or mace or warhammer, dagger or short bow, surcoat or long tunic, riding boots or soft boots, leather belt or girdle, which is a broad belt, belt pouch or knapsack. So you start with some pretty good stuff there, almost as good as the noble. Actually, I think it might even be better. All right, the last one for this video is the merchant calling. Traders or merchants are often the life's blood of many a realm, bringing goods from faraway lands and bargaining for hard-to-get items. While the nobility might rule in theory, it is the more common-blooded merchant who often reigns supreme in the hearts and minds of the populace, bringing news and wares from outlands, like some sort of mercantile messenger. Traders exist in virtually all cultures, some more so than others, and even the more somewhat barbarous Northmen might choose civil trade over violent raiding on more than one occasion. So, still waving at the guy bringing us groceries. Yeah, and then it lists, again, the race culture requirements, talent requirements. You must have merchant as a talent, as you might probably think. Favorite talents, there's mostly there's social, some subterfuge as well, because merchants can be a little shady sometimes. And the other category. Favorite weaknesses, obsession, rare items, or wealth. Skills, they start with 18 plus their intellect and skill points, plus gain the following skills for free. Quite a bit. They have animal handling, crafting, language, lore, perception, persuasion, and they get a choice between sailing level 1 or survival level 1. So you can build kind of a maritime merchant if you want, or more that's more like an overland merchant. They begin with the following items, plus 10 times your renown silver coins, a minimum of 10 silver, sandals or soft boots, trousers or breeches, cloak or tunic, the belt pouch or knapsack, padded gambeson or soft leather jerkin, there's light forms of armor, dagger or short sword, short bow or sling or staff. And they can start with a cart, wagon, or riding horse, which is kind of cool because those are fairly expensive and somewhat rare items. So that's it. So those were the 10, those are 10 of the 20 callings that are in the Savage Kingdoms 3rd edition rulebook. I'll do part 2 perhaps in a few days, do the rest of them. Make sure you like and subscribe if you can. Share this video. Trying to build up the subscription base. A lot of times when I do a part 2, there's not really as many people that watch it. So I was going to do this video all 20 together. Actually, I shot it earlier and it was like 54. It was like 55 minutes. I was like, that's way too long. So I've broken it down to part 1, part 2. So please check out the second one after this one is up. So those were callings. The Savage Kingdoms, we went from alchemist to merchant. Part 2 will pick up from noble and go all the way to witch. So thank you guys for tuning in, and I will talk to you again soon.